Today, as we celebrate International Women's Day, we are honored to have Angela, the CEO and founder of Women's Business Club, a force driving empowerment for women in business. With a prolific writing career, extensive business experience, and a passion for personal growth, Angela is set to change your game. As a seasoned speaker on global stages, she goes beyond business, inspiring both men and women. Yet, amidst her busy schedule, Angela finds joy in simple moments, decorating, gardening, and cherishing family time. Get ready for an insightful conversation that transcends business into personal development. Welcome, Angela. It's a pleasure to have you on Lead with Impact. Hi, it's Michelle Austin from the Lead with Impact podcast. We all know that feeling of being alone and isolated in business. It's tough out there, and it's easy to feel like you're the only one struggling while navigating the business world. But the good news is you're not alone. The Lead with Impact podcast is all about learning from others who have been there and done that. We interview inspiring guests who share their stories, trials, and triumphs so that you can learn from their mistakes and map out your path to success. Each week, we'll bring you inspiring stories, valuable insights, and actionable tips from other business people who are leading with impact. So, if you're ready to learn from others and take your business to the next level, subscribe to the Lead with Impact podcast today. Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Lead with Impact podcast. Today, we welcome Angela. So, Angela, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I'm going to jump right into it. So can you maybe share with our listeners a bit about your journey and what inspired you to establish the Women's Business Club?
The Women's Business Club started back in 2013, so just over 11 years ago, and it was completely by accident. I had no intention of setting up this major global movement that it has now become, and I definitely had no intention of going back into business after my first business. I wouldn't say failed, but it didn't do what it was supposed to do, so I wasn't happy with it. And so I definitely did not set up a clever plan or, good business plan. I just didn't have any of that. What I did have was a passionate dislike for networking. I felt uncomfortable. I felt like I had to dress a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way just to be good enough against my male counterpart. I didn't realize, now looking back, hindsight's wonderful. Looking back, I realize now that it wasn't necessarily the men in the room. It wasn't their fault, but it was my own insecurity and my own lack of confidence. And occasionally you do get a man as well who is a bit condescending. But on the whole, I think the way I was feeling was a lot to do with me and a little to do with them. But I decided to set up something that I would absolutely love going to. And that's how it started. There were 7 key things that was important. The welcome. I hated going into a networking event, looking around, not knowing what to do, where to go. And so I'd always head to the coffee and I'd stand there like little old shy me with a cup of coffee, not knowing what to do. So the welcome, the welcome was key. And so we make sure all of our events, you feel welcome, you know what's going on. I won't bore you with all the details, but there were a whole bunch of things like good quality food, healthy food, not just junk food because I was putting on weight from networking, but really good food, a quality speaker, who's going to educate us, not just try and pitch their business to us, and a bunch of other things. There were 7 in total. So there were these 7, which I now call the 7 pillars. But back then, again, it wasn't intentional. It was just, these are the things that I would like to see at an event. And so set up an event around that. And that's how we started. I think most businesses start well if they see a need and they serve the need. And that's all it was. And what it has grown into now, obviously, we're looking at a global movement offering conference and awards and events and training and platform and the whole shebang. It was very much just a natural progression of seeing more need and figuring out how we can serve that need.
Definitely. I love that it was often the best ideas are kind of by mistake or kind of not when you're expecting them. So I love that. So your mission is to empower women in business. What specific challenges do you see women facing in the business world? And then a sort of a follow-on question from that is how does the Women's Business Club address those challenges?
I think I'm probably going to say this a lot in our chat today because it is the most common thing that I've come across. Everything boils down to confidence and identity. you know, being confident in who you are, knowing what you're called to do, knowing what's inside of you and nurturing that and bringing it out, I think is key to everything, business, life, everything. Even though we offer a lot of practical support, business training, business templates and tutorials, community, all of the things that we offer are all important to growing a successful business. I think none of them work unless you first find yourself. Who are you in the business world? And then find the confidence to show up authentically, unashamed of who you are and what you bring to the business world. And that'll be my message throughout this chat because I can't escape it. It's so key. Women, I find, they're either insecure and so they are perceived as arrogant and nasty and, competitive, or they're insecure and they hold themselves back. Now, I'm not saying all women are insecure, but I do believe we all have some insecurity somewhere. And so if that's the first thing we can address, then everything else in our life, not only business, but relationships and family and your purpose and everything's going to flourish. The most amazing women I've met, they are just who they are, whatever that means. They don't fit into a box. They don't wear a suit or not wear a suit, or they don't have their hair dyed or wear their hair grey or have a blue streak or whatever. You know what I mean? They're just who they are, and they found themselves and they're bringing their best. And that, I think that's the key.
Absolutely love that. I agree with you completely. I think you can only project the best to the world if you are living your best life and you kind of like living it up to your full potential. So I agree with that completely. And I think I identify with that as well. A couple of years ago, I was exactly what you said, like going into a networking event. In fact, still, if I go into another event, I kind of walk into the room and I'm like, okay, let me just grab a cup of coffee so I can hide behind the coffee.
Exactly.
And maybe somebody will say something to me and maybe then we can start something. Or even worse, I prefer going with somebody I know so that I don't feel so awkward. So and that's coming from somebody who knows who she is, who I think is, relatively self-confident. I do still have my insecurities, but you can't project to the world and give your best, and people can't see the best unless you're willing to put it out there and be who you are unapologetically.
Understanding how you network best. So I'm an introvert. I will never be, ever, this cannot happen. I'll never be one of those people that will waltz into a room and be the center of attention. I'm not comfortable there and I won't do that. However, I've learned, number one, to seek out smaller events because the big events, they stress me out, they're noisy, you have to shout to be heard. So I recently went to an event with 120 people and I ran out of there as quickly as I could, and got no value. I got no value. Then a couple of weeks later, I went to a women's business club, coffee and co-working. There were 6 of us. I think we passed around £12,500 worth of business between us, and we weren't even there to do business. We were there to co-work.
Wow.
I met amazing women and really bonded with them, and I came away full, like I was buzzing. My husband said, "Wow, you're buzzing." And so I understand now. And since then, I had such a revelation. Those big events, they drain me, they stress me out. And so seeking out the smaller events is actually better for how I prefer to network. Now, doesn't make either event right or wrong, but it's about me and how I get the best value. And so I think
100%.
part of being authentic is understanding how you network best. If I do go to a big event, I accept that I will be standing on the sides with a drink, waiting for someone to speak to me because I'm just not comfortable and I never will be. It's not lack of confidence in who I am, but I've accepted how I network. And for me, the best is go to events where I'm the speaker. That's where I thrive. I don't know why. It's weird. But when I'm the speaker and the bigger the crowd, the better. And so, but this has taken years and years of observing myself and learning to understand myself and how I function best. And where I'm weak, don't try and be strong because it's just going to take so much energy to be someone I'm not. And
Yeah.
so, but this has taken years to get comfortable. First, discover how I operate best in the business world, and then secondly, to be comfortable and accept that.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Okay, so you're passionate about unlocking the hidden purpose within each person and their businesses. So, how do you approach that, and why is it critical for both personal and professional growth?
Exhausting trying to be someone you're not. And so I'm super passionate about helping people find out who they are, and then there's this natural flow, and then you start to, I mean, this is pretty much segueing on from what we've just discussed, you know.
100%.
Yeah. And I think for me, something I'm particularly passionate about is metacognition. And so that's the understanding of your thought processes, how you think, and how your thoughts affect you. I think you can change your life by just changing one thought in your life. You know, you can have the thought of I'm not good enough. And you can, through my metacognition process that I've written a book about and I speak about, through this process of metacognition, you can change everything by addressing that one thought, which is going to then affect your beliefs, which is going to affect your actions and your outcomes. It's so powerful. I'm so crazy passionate about that whole concept of everything stems from your thought. And so I
Mm.
think to help women, it would just be, or in business and in life, it's just, even if you just do one thing, take time out every day, do what Winnie the Pooh did, our guru, Winnie the Pooh, sit in your thinking spot and think, think, think. And if you just do that for
100%.
10 minutes a day, you'll start becoming aware of your thought process, and then you'll see the connection between those thoughts and things that are happening in your life, business or personal. And then you can say, oh, wow, I don't like that outcome. How do I change the thought? Or I like that outcome. How can I get more of that?
So I'm trying to think of the name of the book and I can't think of it. So what I'm going to do is I will post it here in the video when I go and find the name of the book. But I read a really, really good book a couple of years ago about exactly this and how we talk to ourselves and, you know, the little voices in our head. And it's quite a deep book and you really need to kind of have your wits about you. You can't like read it. It's not an easy read. It's a difficult read because you actually got to think. So I'll post it in the description of the video, and I'll also post it on the video itself, the name of the book. If you're interested, so if the listeners are interested, do yourself a favor. If that sort of deep thinking interests you, we'll also post a link to your book, Angela, and this other book that I'm talking about, and read them and enjoy and learn something about
You
yourself.
have a brilliant speaker in South Africa as well, Dr. Caroline Leaf. I think she's a neuroscientist or something. She is phenomenal. Follow her on social media, and she's all about, your thought processes. A lot of my research has stemmed from her work. So Dr. Caroline Leaf, I highly recommend her.
Perfect. You know what I'm going to try and do? I'm also going to try and see if I can get her on as a podcast guest. And then we can maybe explore this a little bit deeper.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Let's see what we can do. Okay, so you've authored many, many books, and I know you've been a speaker at many different events globally. How do you think you leverage your speaking and your writing to bring about positive change, especially for women and for entrepreneurs?
My particular style is inspirational and motivational. I'm not very clever with retaining statistics and facts, even though I love them. I don't think I do. I'm not very academic, and so my talks aren't very academic. But I think I do love to share a good story, and I do love to inspire people. And the feedback I often get is, wow, that's inspiring. And for me, a successful talk will inspire change. That's how I'd measure if this talk was successful or not. Not if they liked me or not, but did I inspire
Mm.
change? Are you going to be better because of what I shared? And so that's kind of the angle that I come at it from.
Yeah, I love that. And if you really do think deeply about, I mean, like we were just talking about a couple of minutes ago, about, just think about yourself and what energizes you and what depletes you
Mm.
and start learning from those things. And then kind of sit after. I think a lot of times we feel so inspired by a talk, but we don't actually sit in it afterwards and don't actually or after reading a book. We don't actually sit and go, what did I learn from this? And how can I apply this to my daily life?
I actually used to do a lot of talks for the local kind of council or schools or colleges or whatever, government or funded talks that were free for the local business community. Anyway, I used to do a lot of that. And I eventually stopped doing it because I was so frustrated because I would find it would be the same people coming back over and over again because they love the talks and that, but I didn't see any change. And I thought, people are just coming back. They say it was amazing, and yet their business is in exactly the same place. It frustrated me. And sometimes I think there's more value in actually the paid events where people pay to come along because they've spent money. They've got to get some sort of return. Whereas other people in the free events, I just felt like I was tickling their ears, just entertaining them, just there to entertain, but it was frustrating. In some cases, some people, there'll always be the people who just will soak up everything and they will change. But on the whole, I was seeing the same faces over and over again. So I agree, it's better to do, say, one webinar and spend 6 months unpicking it and digesting it and seeing change and then move on to the next webinar than to do a webinar a day. Then you're just filling your brain, you're cluttering your brain, and you're not actually applying anything.
Yeah, 100%. So what I used to do with a business coach of mine is so this book that I was talking about just now is just a bit of a backstory. I got COVID very badly when I was about 7.5 months pregnant. And I was in hospital for, I don't know what it was, 10 days or a week or whatever. And I came out, and at that point in your pregnancy, you're exhausted anyway. But I was completely just like there was nothing left in me. And what he suggested is that we read this book together. So what we would do is a couple of times a week, we'd read the book, and then he'd ask me for insights and how I'm applying it in my life. And it made, it's kind of was kind of like a personal book club, if I can put it that way. It's amazing how just having somebody to hold you accountable, or to, I just want to say a buddy almost,
Yeah.
to say, okay, well, this book was really great, or this talk was really great, but why did I think that? And what learnings did I take out of it? And how am I going to apply that to my life going forward? And then kind of like check-ins periodically to just kind of see how you're applying it. And I mean, we do all go to those talks or those networking events, or read those books that are completely inspirational. A very silly example that has happened to me recently. And as an accountant, you would think that I would get this, but clearly I didn't. It is a series on Netflix called How to Get Rich. It's Ramit Sethi. Blown my mind. Like,
Wow.
completely blown my mind. I have watched the series numerous times because I take different things from it every single time I watch it. And it's changed the way that our family kind of looks at our finances, and it's changed the way that I view money in a personal setting. But it's actually taking the time to sit back and analyze and go, why did I think that this was so good, and what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to look out for that.
He's got a book as well. He runs courses. He's fabulous guy. Cool. So, as a global speaker, quite an interesting question. How have you observed cultural differences impacting women's success in business?
It's quite tricky because it's got a lot more to do with personality than culture, or a lot more to do with confidence than culture. But there are definitely some cultures where women are hindered, particularly the Asian culture. I've been interviewing a lot of Asian women, and oh my goodness, they are educated and driven, but there's still a lot of constraints within the Asian culture, that women are for cleaning the house and having babies and arranged marriages in many cases. Those sorts of cultural constraints, I think, and traditional mindsets have held a lot of the women back. But equally, I've found that it's also driven a lot of women to really push through and bring about change, not only for themselves, but for others. So that's the one real cultural shift I've noticed. Also, I've noticed some countries tend to have more of a poverty mindset, more of a, I'm in a poor country, you owe me because you're in a rich country kind of attitude, which is very difficult to work with because business principles are the same across the board. Principles, the principle of having more income than outgoings, the principle of marketing, the principles are the same across the board. But I think what's different in the different cultures is more attitude and mindset, because any of it can be broken, can be changed. I haven't worked in some countries that are very restricted yet. War zones, for example. I haven't experienced working in war zones yet, and I would be curious to see how much that would impact. I think obviously it would have a massive impact on business success. But there are differences across cultures and countries, but the key thing that stands out to me more than culture is mindset, and how how you embrace your culture to springboard you to be better, or how if you use your culture as an excuse to shrink back and say, oh, I can't.
Mm.
Even in South Africa, with the load shedding, you could easily say, well, I'm going to close my business. There's no electricity. I just can't be bothered with this and shrink back.
Yeah.
Or you can say, right, how do I rearrange my business so that I'm doing my best work when there's electricity and I'm doing other work when the electricity is off. So it's not just culture, but it's also economic constraints or whatever challenges the country's facing.
100%. I do think that that is sort of like, if I think about South Africa, South Africans typically, and this is really generalizing, typically we like to complain a lot, and typically we don't like to do a lot about it.
Oh, that's so funny. I think that's very English
um,
as well. Here in England, there's a lot of that as well.
we like to moan, but we're not going to do anything about it. And I think that that is, it's not the right mindset to have. And that's where I agree with you completely about the, shifting your mindset. So kind of, we need to, instead of seeing it as a challenge, go, let's look at this as an opportunity. And how can I make this work for me? How can I make my business work for me with this opportunity? And I think that that's, let's continue with the load shedding example. The uptake in people converting to solar, for instance, or to other renewable energy sources has been very slow. It has picked up pace in the last year or so, but in general, it's been quite slow. And it's because
That's
we've kind
surprising.
of all gone like, oh, this problem's going to go away. But if we actually maybe sat back and analyzed it and went, okay, this problem isn't going to go away fast. It's an infrastructure problem. This is going to take years to fix,
Decades, probably.
probably decades. In fact, it has already taken decades. What can I do about it? So maybe I should convert now. And is that going to give me an edge in comparison to my competitors? Yes, it's going to cost me more now, but I am going to then be able to operate during the hours when other people can't. And I'm not going to have a monthly expense of the electricity that I used to, because now I'm running off solar. So yes, I've got an upfront cost, but I'm saving that monthly cost. And I think it just, like you say, it's a mindset, and people just need to think differently about things.
Absolutely. Again, I'll just say it goes back to thoughts. Everything goes back to thoughts.
I think you have quite a balancing act that you play in your life. You've got a demanding but thriving business. You've obviously got your writing and speaking engagements. How do you prioritize your own personal well-being? And then what advice do you have for other women for striving to kind of reach that balance in their lives?
It's been a real struggle to find the balance, and it's definitely not something I can say I've achieved. I think it's a daily choice. I think my key things are, first of all, I have set defaults in my week that I stick to religiously. Like, it will be very hard to get me to break one of my defaults. And so it's Wednesday night is date night with my husband, and don't mess with that. We love our date night, but it just means the rest of the week we both run several businesses, and so we're really, really busy. We know we're not neglecting our marriage. We have that special time set aside. And then the second one is Saturday. Yeah, so Saturday is our family day / rest day. And the rule for us there, the default for us there is nothing in the diary, like nothing. If you're going to get married, if one of my kids get married, not as I'm joking, I won't be that extreme. There's always the exception to the rule. But really,
I'm sorry.
it's a time that we just dedicate to having nothing in the diary, no plans. Doesn't mean we won't spontaneously say, oh, let's go somewhere, but it's more a case of just having that complete break. I believe that we function on a 7-day rest, cycle. If we don't have that, we don't function well. So those two defaults have really helped me in life. I can push myself on the other days because I know I'm going to have a good rest on Saturday, and I know I'm going to have quality time with my husband on Wednesday. And so that's really given me, I would say, the edge. And then other things is for me, and again, I think for women out there, figure out what's important to you and what works for you. Don't try to fit into someone else's box. So for me, I wake up early. I struggle to sleep late, and so it's not by choice. I wake up early, so I work with my natural rhythm. And so for me, I don't start working straight away when I wake up. I have me time. I like to pray and read my Bible and have, my devotional time. That's very important to me. I like to exercise. And sometimes I just sit and think. It doesn't matter, Sometimes I like to go sit in the garden, listen to but it doesn't matter. The point is the mornings are sacred. And so sometimes I do, and I hate it when I do because I break my own rules. Don't want to grab my phone and get busy with something because one thing leads to another and my sacred morning is no longer there. So it's very
Yeah.
important just to say, have my morning routine. That sets me up for the day. A good day, a bad day, it doesn't matter. If I've had that morning space, then the day's better, regardless of what challenges might come. And so that's my first balance, is put first things first. If I say I'm going to run later or I'm going to do something later, later might never come. So if I put it first, I know that I've got it in the day. So first things first. I don't do lunch breaks. I might grab something to eat and take 5 minutes, but once I've got my head in the zone, for me, I'd rather work 10 hours straight. I know that's probably not healthy, but that's how I work. That's what works for me. I'd rather get my head down, get it done, and then be finished. But for some people out there, you can't cope with that. That would be bad for you. You need to have a lunch break. You need to say, I'm taking an hour or half an hour off. This will be one of my work-life balance rules or defaults. So what works for me might not work for you. I know people who are terrible morning people and they just get grumpy if they have to do what I do in the morning. Why force yourself to do what I do? It's not you. You're a late night person. You're a night owl. Have your me time in the evenings before you go to bed. And so
Yeah, I'm like that.
it's very much, again, don't look at what everyone else is doing. Study yourself, figure out what works for you, and then fight for that. Because I don't know about everybody else, but I find I have to fight for my balance. Because running the businesses and doing what I do, it could take up every minute of every day, and I still won't have my work done. So it's a real battle to have these disciplines in place. I think my advice, sorry, just to answer your second question, my advice, for anybody wanting to find a work-life balance is to first define what that looks like for you. What's the ultimate work-life balance for you? What would you enjoy? And then fight for it, make it happen. Because it's not going to come naturally. Overworking or being lazy, we either one or the other, aren't we? We either overwork or we underwork. So overworking or being lazy comes naturally. That we will easily flow. It's getting that balance that doesn't come naturally that we have to fight for.
I mean, I'm going through that exact struggle right now and have been for almost the last year. I've got to be very, very strict with myself and say, I am working until this time. And then after this time, it is family time. And after family time is me time. I am not a morning person. I don't do the mornings. I'm the kind of person that, to be honest with you, I grab a cup of coffee and I go sit in front of my desk because that is where I'm going to be the most productive. Like, just leave me alone for a couple of hours and I'll just get a few things done. And then I kind of come alive in the afternoon. So I think it is about its habits. And I think those habits or those defaults are so difficult to
Oh
instill,
my
but
goodness.
so easy to break. And you
So
have to be so disciplined with yourself.
I must say, I totally agree with you. I still struggle, but I just keep fighting for it, fighting for the ideal balance that I would like. And just every day, it's choice and battle. And some days you get it right, some days you get it wrong, but you don't give up. You keep trying because it's worth it.
In your spare time, you enjoy simple activities like decorating, gardening, spending time with your family. How do you think those activities contribute to your overall well-being and creativity in your professional life?
I think they're essential. I'm not a neuroscientist, but my limited understanding of the brain is like it's muscles, right? So you use certain parts of the brain and they become stronger. If you neglect other parts, they weaker. And correct me if I'm wrong, neuroscientists out there. But so the way I see it is when I'm doing something that's completely different part of my brain or different part of my body, even gardening or playing the piano or whatever, playing with my grandkids. When I'm doing those different activities, it's strengthening another part of me that will then be able to help me in the business. So say, for example, I'm doing something creative. I'm using my creative muscles call them muscles. So everything I'm doing is creative. Then when I come to face a business problem, I've got strong creative muscles. If I'm just doing one thing in business all the time, continually solving one problem, and it's like building biceps, but just building the one arm and leaving the other arm, you just become imbalanced. And so some people see it as I'm not working, I'm doing the gardening and then stressing about not working. No, you actually are building a really good balanced work life because you need those other parts of you to be strong as well. And that's how I see it. Technically and scientifically, I might not be 100% accurate, but that's how I see it. Also, if you see it as, if you put your toaster on and you hold your toaster down, it's not meant to be held down long term. It's just meant to be a few minutes, and then up pops the toast, and then the toaster rests, and then makes toast later. It's the same for us. If we constantly on all the time, we're just going to burn out. So we have to be on for a bit and then change task and then do something else and then put the toaster back on again, and that way everything stays healthy and flows well. And so I'm so passionate, really encourage you to find those things that fill your soul, make you feel like life makes sense again, and put them into your routine. And when I do gardening, I do not wake up in the morning and say, or Saturday especially, I feel like gardening. I'm like, I just feel like staying in bed and watching TV, right? I have to force myself to go out and do that, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did it. I feel amazing now. Whereas if I did stay
Yeah.
in bed and watch TV all day, I would feel very lethargic and drained. It takes more effort to do the right thing than to default into the wrong thing. So once you find those things, I'm very clear on the key things that fill me. Going for hikes in nature, absolutely, it's another world. Fiddling in my garden, or doing various creative things, art or music or whatever. Those things, at the end of it, I feel whole. That's the only way I can describe it. I feel whole, complete as a person. Whereas if I just do something because I'm tired, I'm just going to watch TV, I feel worse afterwards. I don't feel rested. I feel emptier. And so
Yeah.
you've got to force yourself to do the right things, to stay whole, not to burn out. And that will impact your business, because no matter what your role in your business, whether it's just you and you doing everything, or whether you one cog in a big company, it doesn't matter. Regardless, your place in the business world depends on you being the best version of you. And you're not the best version of you if you're totally wiped out or burnt out. So
Mm.
I don't think gardening is not working. I don't. I wrote a book called I Did It in My Pajamas. And that book came to me while I was in the bath, having a bath in a working day. And I was lying in the bath, realizing I'm working. This is work. Because I was in the, because I love to have a lot, like I can bath for 2 hours. I love to just relax in the bath. And I was relaxing in the bath in the middle of the working day because I was fed up, and I was like, I need just to go have a bath. And in that bath, I was processing and problem solving, troubleshooting, and I was working. I was doing better work because I was having a bath than had I forced myself to sit at my desk. And so as I was lying there in the bath, I had this epiphany. I'm going to write a book called I Did It in My Pajamas, because at that stage, I'd just come out of depression and I could not get dressed or brush my hair or brush my teeth and work. I had to make energy choices. I can use all my energy to get dressed and brush my hair, whatever, or I can skip that and use the energy for spending 1 or 2 hours replying to emails so my business doesn't die. And I had to make these energy choices. And so I thought, well, I did it in my pajamas is like how I got through it all, all the things that I got through. And then one of the chapters was I did it in the bath, explaining exactly that. Two, we have to get out of this 9 to 5 worker mentality, especially women. Men are still kind of okay. That's how they work. But us women, we are spinning so many plates. We're juggling so many different things. Even if the dad helps with the childcare or the cooking or the housework, the weight still seems to be on the woman. Even if the man is amazing, doing 50-50 and everything, it's still different for women. I don't think that will ever change. We're just built differently. So we have to find ways to also adapt our business life so that it works for us, and so that it doesn't completely deplete us and send us into burnout and depression.
Absolutely love those analogies. Thank you so much for sharing them. Love the little toaster example. I think I'm a little toaster. I need to press the stop button or stop holding it down a little
Stop
bit.
holding it down, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Because that's when you force yourself to go longer than you naturally would. That's holding it down. You're forcing yourself, and that's where the burnout, that's when the danger zone is.
100%. So while I was in Cape Town a couple of weeks ago, I needed some fresh air, some perspective, and I had a few things I needed to deal with in Cape Town. And I think you're completely right. I mean, I was with my son, it was just the two of us. He's two. We would go on a drive and he would kind of fall asleep in the car, and I would literally just go stop and sit and watch the ocean or watch the kite surfers or the surfers or whatever. And I can't tell you how that energized me. I was working much fewer or far fewer hours in the day and still getting a whole lot achieved. Sometimes it takes that, that awareness, that self-awareness, and that sit back and think, like you mentioned earlier. I'm this person where I'm always on the go, 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 got so much to do, got so much to do. This is my to-do list, I need to do it. But sometimes, in fact, my slogan for this year is slow down to speed up.
Yeah, that is so profound.
Yeah.
So true.
So it really is sometimes about sitting back, slowing down, smelling the roses, not letting your toast burn, and just enjoying life and enjoying the moments, living in the moment and enjoying them for what they are.
I want to add something else that I discovered that really helped me. At one point, I was doing a lot of business trips, driving to all the beautiful places across the UK. There's so many beautiful places. And I would literally drive into a place, go to the meeting, and go home. You wouldn't say I've been to that place. And I remember the day I had this epiphany that has just been a game changer for me and for my husband. I'll tell you why. I went to Bath, I had a business meeting, and I thought, I've been to Bath about 10 times already this year, and I still haven't seen it. So what I decided to do then and there was every time I go somewhere, I'm going to allow time to visit the place as well. So I'm mixing business and pleasure. So go to Bath, have my meeting, take an hour to go have a coffee and walk around the park or whatever. When I'm traveling further afield, my husband always travels with me or when possible because we love doing these trips together. So we make it a bit of a fun business trip. So he drives, I have my little car office and I get on with stuff. We get there, we do the business, and then we take an extra day, a whole day. We stay overnight, we take a whole day, and we have a little bit of a mini break. And that has been a game changer. No longer am I exhausted by all my business trips, but I'm actually like excited. Where are we going to next? What are we going to do? What hotel are we going to stay at? Total game changer. And that was a key for me and for my husband to really enjoy the journey. And I think for business women out there, just listening to this, what can you add into your day to day? Just a little extra something that can really make it exciting. You look forward to it rather than, oh no, I've got to do this again. It's almost like you give yourself a little reward, a little treat for a job well done,
Yeah.
That was a game changer for me. Now I've seen so many beautiful places and I take photos every time so I remember all the places I've been rather than just the inside of an office. I never took photos of those.
I love that. I love that. I love that. And I know my dad normally does something similar when he travels. Like if he goes, one trip I'll always remember is he went to somewhere in Europe and then he took an extra couple of days and he went to go and see the Northern Lights and the ice hotel and all of that. And it's one of those standout memories for him. He's like, I've traveled halfway across the world. I may as well take a day or two just to sit back and appreciate life and appreciate the beauty.
So important because, life does go very quickly. You look back and you think, I've just seen offices. I know every office in the country, but I haven't, and then you think, why didn't I just take a moment? Because those moments are precious, and those moments is what makes up your memory bank of all these amazing things. Or it can just be like this big blur of, oh dear, 10 years have passed, and it goes so quickly.
It goes incredibly quickly. I know my husband and I were talking this morning, like, oh my goodness, can you believe we're on the 5th of March already? It feels like Easter's in a couple of weeks' time. It feels like Christmas was last week.
It's nuts. It gets faster and faster every year, I find.
It does indeed. Okay, so can you share a specific moment or story where you felt that your work had a profound impact on somebody's life or business? Specifically just talking about International Women's Day, particularly related to women's empowerment.
I think the first one that springs to mind, because often you don't know how you're impacting people. People don't
Mm.
come back and tell you, which is sad. I wish
Mm.
I had more stories. I know I was achieving something in life. But anyway, I do have one story. So I was doing a training course with, I think it was about 10 or 12 women, and I was busy talking, presenting, and this woman just burst out crying. And I was like, oh my goodness, what did I say? What have I done? So I said, what's the matter? What happened? Sorry if I offended you. And she's like, I just realized I don't have to do it alone.
Oh, shame. It's so sweet.
I know. Like she's been building this business, she's been struggling, she's a single mom, she had all these things, all this, weight on her. And on top of it was the business that she's trying to, she doesn't, she's very good at what she does, but she's not so good at the other stuff. We all have that, right? We're very good
Mm.
at some things. And there was this moment when she realized the power of the community. It's like,
Mm.
wow, I don't have to do this alone. And that for her was a game changer. It totally changed her life. And I love that. I love those moments where you just see people get these light bulb moments and you know that they're going to be changed forever.
Love that. Oh, and that's how a lot of women feel, and that's what's so powerful about the Women's Business Club is, you know, sharing and realizing that you're not in
Yeah.
this game called business alone. That we're all there to support and to help where we can.
Yeah, it is power. The community is so powerful, and too few of us tap into it, and we struggle alone. We struggle alone for too long. And actually, when we come together and we just support each other, and sometimes it's the simplest things that can be a game changer. Some key pivotal moments in my business journey has just been one phrase from a woman sitting next to me. She just says something and it changes everything. So the power of
Yeah,
community is not only what skills do you bring to the table, or what experience or expertise do you have, or you know that is all good, and it does all help. But sometimes the power of community is just one woman encouraging another woman, and that woman has the
yeah,
strength to go on, or the ability to make a decision. Like Women's Business Club, the name came from a cup of tea I was having with another businesswoman who said to me, your business name doesn't make sense, people doesn't know what it is. That's all she said. I remember crying the whole day. It's like, oh, my baby. Because it's hard to let go of something so precious. And that was a Friday. By the Sunday evening, I'd rebranded the whole company to Women's Business Club. Everything had changed. I'm like, right, now people are going to know what it is. It's a club for business women.
yeah,
And that was such a pivotal moment. It was such a game changer. And all it was a cup of tea with another businesswoman who just said it doesn't make sense. And that's all it
yeah,
was. That's
yeah.
the power of community.
It can literally be something so small that can spark something massive. And it's beautiful. I love that story. As we celebrate International Women's Day, what message do you have for aspiring women, leaders and entrepreneurs? And then what steps do you think or do you believe that we would need to take to collectively to accelerate women's equality globally?
The key thing I would say to the individual woman is the best thing you can do is to be the best version of you. We've covered that a lot today, and I just wanted to reiterate it into that little phrase. That's the best thing you can do is be the best version of yourself and show up unashamedly as your authentic self in whatever context. Collectively, I think one of the biggest problems I see is businesswomen are very competitive and they can be very nasty to each other. If we can solve that problem and just operate from a place of kindness, not feeling threatened by each other, but truly supporting each other. I'm not talking about lip service. I'm talking about truly taking the time not to be threatened by the woman next to you, but to truly see how you can compliment her. We would be a powerful force to be reckoned with. And that's all it would take. But it's really hard because women are threatened by each other, and women can be that's the negative side. The positive side is, imagine if we could get over ourselves and actually truly act as a community. We could change national economies. We could together solve major problems. We could campaign for change in our government. I mean, there's so much we could do because the power of community. But we have to have the mindset, the community mindset, to achieve it. We cannot walk around with that individual mindset.
I agree wholeheartedly with you. And I think that, if I had to answer that question, I would have said exactly the same as what you just have.
Great mind.
I Yeah. There's and I've seen it so much in boardrooms and in corporates, like how women really just compete against one another. And it is so incredibly sad. You know, we could take on the world if we did it together instead of just kind of being silly and catty and nasty and competitive.
If that's one thing I can achieve with Women's Business Club, I'd be really proud of our work.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Anyways, thank you, Angela. I really appreciate your time. It has been a most delightful afternoon, my time, and morning, your time, chatting to you. And yeah, here's wishing you the best.
Thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you, Michelle.
Thank you so much.